Now, on that note, it is technically a lordosis then, it's technically a kyphosis. Within general parlance, they usually use it, can use it interchangeably, which can be confusing. Technically, that is a lordosis, that is a kyphosis. It's usually used to mean an exaggerated curve, though. So technically, I've got a lordosis there, I've got a kyphosis, I've got a lordosis there. It's usually used where it's like extreme. Does that make sense? So usually, within common parlance, when someone's always got a lordosis, they usually mean it's an exaggerated curve. Technically, it's a lordosis, it's a kyphosis. But when it's exaggerated, it's usually referred to as a lordosis or a kyphosis. Everyone okay with that? It's just used interchangeably, which can be confusing. So, what we're going to do, in a minute you're going to pair up and work with someone and do postural assessments on each other, and hopefully in that book there should be a bit of a chart. Have we got separate pages to do a postural assessment? I think we've got sheets in there anyway. But I'm going to do a postural assessment on someone. But what we're looking at is that idealized version in the book on page, which page was it again? 7? Yeah. Now I say idealized because that's exactly what that is. It's ideal. We've got no bone issues and all the rest of it. That's the posture that theoretically we're trying to get into. So what we're going to do, why are we doing a postural assessment? We need to see how people honestly stand, walk, sit, lie. Traditionally it's done standing. Okay, we'll do that. And we're looking at what is their body doing, what muscles could be pulling their body away from that ideal version. And again, I do stress that a lot. That's just an idealized version. It's not necessarily what we're after. There's an argument to suggest it's a lot of old tosh. But you get the idea anyway. Okay. So I'm going to look at some of the postural assessments in a minute, and I'm looking at how far away did they deviate from that so-called ideal. Now, that does just show it from one side, because that's the side that makes the biggest difference, the spine. There's another spinal one that I haven't mentioned, actually, and it's called scoliosis. So I've spoke about lordosis and kyphosis, which is either it's movement in the sagittal plane of the spine. There's lateral movement that's capable, and that's called the scoliosis. And that's where the spine deviates either to the left or the right as you're looking at it. Lateral deviation of the spine. A lot of people, that's usually genetic or disease related. It can be because of muscle imbalances. Usually leg length discrepancies is probably the most common one that I certainly come across. Is where one leg is longer, let's say that's my longer leg, which would hitch the leg up relative to everything else, which will effectively, your brain will not allow your eyes to be out of parallel. So if nothing, let's keep it simple, that's a bit basic. Let's say that leg suddenly grew. Whoop. My brain will not allow my eyes to do that because it gets its perception from the eyes being parallel. So it will do any combination of any sort of combination to alter that, to keep your eyes parallel. I've had as a client where the eyes weren't level. It was literally one orbit was slightly higher than the other one and knocked the body out of position. She was a doctor, actually. Anyway. So that's a scoliosis. Certain genetic ones, but that goes for any we're doing. You can't really do, I've already explained that, hopefully enough. If certain people's structures, not everyone's going to be able to get into the same shape, same position. Not everyone's spine, you're going to be able to do anything about it because it's fixed, it's fused. We're just working on soft tissue that we can adjust and manipulate, exercise, lengthen, strengthen, shorten, so we can put the body in the so-called correct posture. Okay, so happy with scoliosis? Yeah?
When scoliosis have problems, if you can would you sort of say, I can see how you trunk structure, how could you adjust scoliosis?
The biggest one is, one of the simplest things to do, whenever you do it, which we do anyway here, we stress it a lot in our classes, is we're always asking them questions. What does that feel like as you do that side compared to what does it feel like as you do that side, assuming your body is doing the same thing the other side. And that's giving you an indication that certain things are tight. So let's say there's all sorts of different variations of lateral flexion you can do qigong, where, so if you know on someone that let's keep it simple. Let's say the quadratus lumborum is really tight and it's pulling the body like that, and they've got, again, because this muscle is tight, let's exaggerate. Quadratus lumborum is tight, it pulls the body over that way. If nothing else moves, your head would be like that. Your brain won't allow it, so it makes you do that. Basically, you've got a scoliosis going on your spine. Hence what this postural assessment is about. Say, it's looking like this muscle is too tight. So if we stretch off that muscle, it'll put you more biomechanically advantaged and hopefully take the stress, the lateral deviation of the spine. You okay with that? The nutshell, the simple, and it's the simple one to do and the best one to do, is Be body aware. What does it feel like as you do one side? Does it feel tighter? Because you're going to get more tightness. That will manifest itself in different ways depending on where the scoliosis is. Sores and roll down is the best one to see, especially at upper the thoracic. So if my spine deviated, so that's my thoracic spine deviated to the right, and it was sort of like that and not straight, then as I do a roll down, I'm going to exaggerate, I'll be like that. You usually see it a lot on the roll down. That's the biggest one to see, usually on the roll down, if you're looking at a scoliosis. Just get them to do a roll down. Any old way, let's not overly fixate on it. Just rolling them down, forward and down, and you're looking for, does it look like they're doing this at the back? And that's usually a good sign of scoliosis. Yeah? This one, okay. You can, provided it's caused by soft tissue. Yeah. That's all we can adjust here. We can't, if it's genetic, it's not, if someone's bone shape and structure, I'm just going to hit them with hammers, you're not going to do all the stretching in the world, won't do diddly squat for it. That's what I'm emphasising.
But
yeah?
a friend of mine said, like she's 30, 40, and she said, I've now got scoliosis.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't do that, I can't do that, so I've got scoliosis. But is that because she hasn't been ever diagnosed before then, or is it because she
could be, yeah, it could be.
Some people are scoliosis genetically.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
Some people it's tight muscles pulling the spinal position. Yeah. So who told her that, and what made her go to the doctor? Or
When it's genetic, it's no more different for me and ludicrous to me to saying, how can I turn you into a male by doing Pilates? You can't. You need an operation. Yeah. She's halfway there, but you get. If it's as a result of tight tissues, then we can do something about it. That's where the body awareness, again, I said at the beginning, it's one of the hardest things you'll have as a Pilates instructor, is trying to get your clients to be body aware. Because that's the key for where tightness is. The phrase I sometimes use is, we said about if you're tight, let's say for argument's sake, I'm tight on that side's not too bad, then you want to be doing a little bit more work on the more restrictive side, basically. Another way of phrasing it, which side, I used it this morning in class, which side feels like it's pulling more when I was working from a fascia point of view? Which one? So there's ones where, as a general rule, I sometimes say, which one would you rather not do any more of? Because again, your brain wants to move away from pain and discomfort, so that's usually a sign, well, I wouldn't want to do any more of them. That's the side you need to do more on. As a general rule, there's different ways you can phrase it. Sometimes I phrase it as, which side do you feel you're getting more benefit? And then, okay, let's do some more on that side. There's different ways you can phrase it, depending on what you're after, to be honest with you. But that's how we usually say it. Be body aware, what does it feel like?
For someone like that, it's like, who told her she can't do it? It's a different story. The doctor says, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. Yeah. But if she's just got, I've got that now, I can't do it. Yeah.
It's probably more difficult for them to do it, therefore they don't want to do it. But then you're up against human nature. You can use your skills to try and persuade them, I suppose. If it's soft tissue, it can be adjusted. If it's like tight muscles and fascia, then you can alter it by Pilates, by exercise, by yoga, whatever.
Right. Someone turning up in your class with scoliosis, having never been to a medical professional, is unlikely, isn't it? And if they did...
No, we do get it. No, we do get it. We get people with all sorts of issues, don't really got issues.
I've had one
I'm just going to get something.
who was genetically diagnosed. She had one person like that. The rest are people that probably don't even know that they've got scoliosis. But it's far in the shape of the people that have to cut nails. And so they might not even know before they've done a hospital.
And do you think that's probably because of things like having a heavy bag or
Heavy bags.
and actually it's not they might not, like say, not even notice it because they've got like a bit
Madam?
Yeah.
because they don't really
Madam?
feel like that all the time. Actually, it's then
Handbag.
Mademoiselle, whatever a mademoiselle is, I have no idea at all. You go, darling. You get darling, you're lucky.
Scoliosis, oh, that's not a disease.
yeah.
It's not easy. It's not easy. It's just your muscles gone out of place and it's causing a curve in the spine. So
I
actually,
think like Paul mentioned about leg discrepancy, like a medical institute don't see...
2 centimetres.
2 centimetres.
Nice guidelines.
Is what they would class as a leg discrepancy. 2 centimetres is massive for your body to be out of alignment.
You can have your leg length discrepancy a little tiny bit, which can cause you murder. You can have it a lot and doesn't cause you any problems. Some
You
people.
could have a child could have a 2 centimetre discrepancy and not have a diagnosis. If that child put his heel lift in that shoe, 40 years down the line, he'd be fine. But 40 years down the line, after heel lift, he'll probably like this. Crazy.
Right. Teenage witch time. So, can you take your socks off if you're happy taking your socks? So, here we go. I'll give you my spiel. Okay, so, Brian, I'd like to do a postural assessment on you now. I need you to stand as your body honestly wants you to stand. To get the most out of it, I ideally need you to stand as minimal as you feel comfortable standing in.
Yeah.
You okay with that? Okay, just wait there a minute. Just out of convention to do it here. I don't, by the way, I do it in there. But anyway, out of convention, do my postural assessments here. I just want you to stand and face the front and stand as your body honestly wants you to stand. If that's like Quasimodo, it's like Quasimodo. This usually goes for men rather than women, I'll be honest. I've said to you before, they're walking like that. You tell them you're doing a postural assessment and you stand like Superman. For you to get the best out of this, I need you to stand as your body wants you to stand. There's no judgment, I don't give a monkey's what you look like. Okay? Okay. So, I want you here, at some stage, I'll be asking you to lift your leg nice and high. I'll be asking you to lift up, palpate, you'll put my hands here, and I'll be asking you to lift the leg. When you lift your leg, lift it up nice and high, and try and prevent, if you can, obviously unless you're going to fall, touching the wall, because it alters what I'm looking for. I might also palpate, you don't let me put my hands on. You sure? Okay. Fails otherwise. So I apologize. So you stand there and face that, I do all that. Then I'll ask you to turn and face that way. Make sure you're looking straight ahead. I've had pictures on the wall there, and people, body goes where the eyes look, I'll exaggerate it. They weren't looking straight ahead, they're looking at the nice pretty picture, and basically do that. And it took me ages figuring out how many clients have got rotations. I don't figure it out, they're not looking straight ahead, they're looking over there. Those make a difference. And then I'll ask you to turn and face this way. Okay, so before I start again, on that note, there's an obvious one. There's a definition of an expert. An expert is someone who's made every single error it's possible to make. If you're familiar with that old definition of an expert. It's called an old-world definition of an expert. It's someone who's made every single mistake it's possible to make. Yeah? You can look at it another way. Who would you rather have heart surgery perform? What surgeon would you rather have perform your heart surgery? Someone who's never made any mistakes, or someone that's made every single mistake on the planet? In other words, someone fresh from medical school, or someone's been doing it for donkey's years. Anyway, where I'm going with this is, make sure your floor is level. I've done postural sessions on floors I didn't realise weren't level, and it does affect. I couldn't understand why they looked, I exaggerated, they were just like, from the front they looked like that, because the floor was not level, and then from the back they looked the other way. So theoretically they shouldn't have done. As they looked around, they still should have leaned, because the floor wasn't level. It might sound obvious, but check your floor is actually level, because it makes a difference.
Especially old houses.
Yeah.
Old houses.
Now, having said that, remember what we said about when you go home and do a postural assessment on someone. It's handy if you find something, because if they're standing there, everything's perfect, you haven't really got anything to work with. Does that make sense? So you can, if you want to, artificially do something. Yeah, but it's nice if it's genuine, I'll be honest with you. Okay, enough said. So if you can stand there for us, Sabrina. Stand as your body honestly wants it to stand. You can pull them down just a little bit further if you're happy doing that. Brilliant. Super.